start off with Moderna. I mean, I will say this week we are starting to come back, right? I still see us closing this gap right here of 378. I'm not really sure if we're going to really drop past this, but again, let's put it in perspective from our original move starting 726, well, starting give or take 7.9 to 726. We hit our targets, but then we blew above and hit our like much larger target, the 423. So with that being said, we found our support, basically where we'd want to find our support. If we were to chop all this off right here, right, then we basically found perfect support. Now let's see, what do we do from here? If we can get up to this 100 and conquer the 100, then I'm looking at it more. We're gonna retake the highs, right? But it's pretty volatile. Again, I do agree that we're gonna close the gap of 375, but I'm not really quite sure when that will happen. I just as a because if you look on the 10.5, we reached it, and look above, and then the next day we failed. 306 would probably be another decent position to try to gain, like to re-enter, gain some support. As long as we do not breach this general area, right? Really the 300. I would like it to stay above the 300, but as long as we stay above the 293, we're still kind of in this buy. Let's kind of see what happens. You see, we made the low, came up, made a new low, but now we're coming. Let's see if we can make a higher low and then continue to trend higher. Pfizer, I mean, this was looking good back in August, but September was really nasty for Pfizer. Now, but if we look at, here's our trend line. All right, we were running this trend line for quite some time, right? From April to just about July, hitting it perfect right before we went parabolic. Now, I'm sorry. It's interesting that we are relatively close to the trend line. Now, I'm not saying we're going to dip all the way to the trend line and that's going to be our pop higher. But if you put it in perspective, where was the trend line? Was at 38. Right around, if we were to hit this week, we're at 40. So it's still a 2% or 2-point move, which isn't that bad for the year. Now, it's not astronomical like the rest of the market. However, it's not too horrible. Now, I would like to see, we're finding a lot of support right around this area. If we can get back above the right around here, the 41.68, then I would be a buyer into the Christmas season. But again, on the downward projection, I would say look for the trend line. Merck, yeah, it doesn't look like the most promising. Maybe like finding some support. I mean, it's kind of hard because it gapped and then now it just fizzled all the way down. So probably to gap fill, maybe to 76.70. That's maybe where they're trying to bid it to. It was a beautiful gap. 77.38 is more because this is right here. If we can conquer this high right here, the 79.19, really kind of above this red line, then I would be a buyer to try to take out the highs. But as long as we're really below this 50% of the larger trend right here, or larger move, Fibonacci, then I'm more of a seller or a skeptic. Now, United Health Group went bonkers. They had their earnings like we wanted, and they took off. Now, of course, we came back a little bit, but it looks like, I mean, the earnings, let's see. They beat on earnings and the call. They must have said something pretty decent. We are above. We did make that new high, so that would make sense that we had a lot of selling, but target would probably be 438 to 448. This is a nice one. I enjoy this one. Let me go ahead and put that into the notebook. UNH. All right. AstraZeneca's next. AstraZeneca. I mean, we hit the high, but this is. I mean, be very careful because look, we hit the high, and within 3 days we had. I mean, yeah, gapped horribly 3 days, then gap up. I mean, this is like Gap City, man. Be careful with this one. I mean, I see as long as we kind of hold the 58.94, then 61.34 sounds like a good place that we're gonna retake. So do I see us making a new high? I do, but it's kind of a chop fest to get there. Johnson and Johnson. Earnings are tomorrow. Um, I mean, we're knocking on the door right here. We made a new low, but it looks like we're trying to break out right here of this 62. Now, again, we hit target, our downside target of the 1618, right? So, I mean, we're hit target perfectly. Well, we hit it and then we came back, retested, made it a little bit lower, and looks like we're poised. The only thing that would get me nervous, like I would be a little bit of a buyer here, but what makes me nervous is earning comes out tomorrow. Now, if it was anything like earnings last time, that's what gave us this massive move higher. So just again, keep an eye on it. But Johnson and Johnson after earnings might be interesting. ABBV, man, we were looking like we were gonna try to come back and close this nastiness, but now coming from here, well, we just had earnings. That makes sense. We just because they dropped out dollar on earnings, but $1.30. So yeah, that was a big or not a dividend. Excuse me. Earnings are coming out. The 29th of this month. Again, last Monday, we were looking higher. This Monday, we look like we might come back to retest the 106. Sarepta, man, remember we were conquering, taking names, went from 65 to 100, no problem, relatively easy, just buying, get to the 100, look above look above a little bit and failed miserably hard this last week. Yeah, basically 97 to 84. But let's do this. So now we have an actual. So if we were to base it from here, we just lost our 50%, which was basically this teal line. But let's go all the way down from the bottom. If we go all the way from the bottom, that's more interesting because 50% of that we are at, excuse me, we were right at the 50. I mean, we slammed right down to it, right? We broke below a little bit, so there's a higher chance that it will continue down, like down to this probably teal line. But there is a slight percentage that this is where it's find its footing and higher. Now, the longer it stays here and kind of gathers itself and can't go down, then I would bet that it's going to try to retake the 100. If it can retake the 100, let's go back to kind of see what I'm talking about. Volume picked up as well. Then, because remember, this 1 year ago, this stock was $181. And then from then, we've been in this kind of long-term nasty squeeze. So just keep that in perspective. Bristol Myers. Since August has been on sayonara. It's gone straight down. But what's interesting is this. I mean, we way outdid our first downward target, which was the 58, right? But we remade our second downward target, and when it came back, right, we've haven't been able to really make a significant new low, right? We got earnings coming out, what, probably next week or 2 weeks from now. Well, no, 10 days from 9 days from now, the 27th. If we can't really breach this low, right? Because these would be our downside targets. And we can kind of find a footing, especially above, right, probably right around this 50 right here. If we can find some footing above the 50, then Bristol Myers looks pretty decent to retake this 61. Gilead looks like it's wants to go down. So down and down. Target would be 66.83 to the 65.13.